Okay, welcome to the Spotlight with Sean O'Rourke. Today's episode, we're going to be talking with my friend Mike Roberts. We're going to talk about his experiences on A&E's My Ghost Story, as well as SyFy Channel's Fact or Faked. For decades, he's been doing paranormal research and ghost hunting. He's a self-published author. He's a gamer. He's a director and a cinematographer as well. Let's get to it. Mike, what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot, dude. What's going on with you?
Well, I'm doing my little show, the Spotlight with Sean O'Rourke. So you're in the spotlight. You're in the hot seat. Yeah, that light right above you.
All right.
Cool. I'm glad you're here. So you and I have known each other for a long time,
Yeah, quite a while.
and
It didn't always start off on the best of terms either, but look at us now.
yeah, yeah, we were competitors, I guess you could say, in the world of independent filmmaking, and we kind of hazed each other for a little bit there, didn't we?
I hate it's such a strong word, but yeah.
No, haze, like when you're in college, hazing.
Yeah. You got me really good one night over a light beer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll skip all that right now. I want to talk about, you were on you did a couple of episodes. You are a ghost hunter, and
Yes.
you're, an author. You have a book. I am a ghost hunter. I see it on the shelf behind you. That's good product placement.
Purposely did that.
It's there, and so I wanted to talk about the two episodes you were on, A&E on their My Ghost Story. You did an episode of that. Was that the one with the battleship, the North Carolina battleship?
Actually, it's so funny because both episodes, the one on the Sci-Fi Channel as well, they were both about the battleship, and
Oh, I didn't
I
realize. Okay, so just to give you a little, give the audience a little bit. So we live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the USS North Carolina is docked here, and it's a ship that served all through World War II,
Mhm.
and was even there in Pearl Harbor for the signing of when the Japanese surrendered. It was one of the battle group ships that was protecting the other ships that were in the harbor when the Japanese boarded and signed the surrender. It's got a huge history, the ship, but a lot of people say it's haunted, and
Mm.
they've had people that have seen the ghosts on the ship, and so here you come into play. A&E's doing a show, My Ghost Story, and they come to you because you're the expert area ghost hunter in this area. I can say that, and and the other one was Fact or Faked,
Mhm.
and that was on the SyFy Channel, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so both those episodes encompass the battleship. So tell me a little bit about your background. I mean, I know you've written a book. This is for the audience. I know you,
Sure.
but how the hell did you get into ghost hunting in the first place?
I mean, look, we're gonna take this all the way back to probably like 1985, 86. I'm not claiming that this is when I went out hunting ghosts, but just hear me out.
Okay, because I was gonna say, because I was 10 years old in '85. So like, how
Yeah.
you weren't born?
No, I was 6.
Okay. You were
So what happened was I was real big into the things that all kids were. He-Man, Ninja Turtles, and Ghostbusters.
yeah.
And when you're in elementary school, like every year, they used to have these things. You guys don't know because you guys don't go to physical school anymore. But like when you would go to school and you would get like they would announce there's going to be a book fair, right? So you run home and you beg your parents for like $10 to come spend at this book fair.
Is that the
And
one where they give you the little piece of paper and you'd check off the books that you wanted, and then the books would come later and then they would divvy them out? Or was it like a book fair?
no, it was a book fair.
It was
Like
a book fair. Okay.
they'd come set up in the library, and like each classroom would take their turns. Like you'd walk through with your money like it was a store, and you'd pick out the books you want and pay for them. So and it seemed like every year they always had like for the Ghostbusters cartoon, the real Ghostbusters, they always had these little books that were like, I don't know, mini, probably like 10 pages long, but hey, they were little cartoon books. And I went there one year, and I was looking for a Ghostbusters book, and the lady at the book fair said, we don't have any this year, but we do have if you like stuff about ghosts, we have these books about real ghosts. And I'm
Okay.
like, what do you real ghosts? Like, what? So I ended up buying this book. It was written by an author named Hans Holzer, which comes into play much later in life as well. But it was a book that was well above my reading level at the time, but it had pictures. And when you're a kid and you're looking at these and you're seeing these like famous, like now super famous ghost photos, and you're like, well, they must be real because they're in this book. People, you can't write these books and have them put out and shown to everybody if it's not real.
Right.
So
Right.
so my interest in real ghosts started kicking in. But sometime around 1999, I actually started working with Hans Holzer himself.
Oh,
And
that's
um,
crazy. That
I,
okay.
I
Okay. So you find this book in 1985, and then you grow up to work with this. All right. I'm just gonna jump in here because I have just a quick similar story.
sure.
Huge Star Wars fan, always looked up to George Lucas, and then I had a dream come true, and I worked on a movie called Radioland Murders that was produced by Lucasfilm, and I got to meet George Lucas on set and talk with him, and that's crazy.
That's huge.
That's like you, but it's the same thing because like you meet this idol that wrote this book,
Yeah.
and
And
it's very rare that people like you and I have experiences where we grow up to run into or meet the people that helped shape our lives. That's crazy. Okay,
for
so
sure,
you working with the guy, and his name's Hans.
Hans Holzer. And
Hans
so
Holder. And that's an even
he
creepy ghost hunting name.
isn't it?
That's
And he
like
was from Vienna, so he had like this accent, and he like almost kind of like did you ever see the Monster Squad when you were a kid?
yeah,
And
of
you see
course.
the scary German guy?
Yeah.
Like this is what it reminded me of. I was like, "Oh, it's scary German guy." But he actually, so we had some correspondence. He had his way of doing things, and unfortunately, by the time I had really started talking with him, he had gotten up there in age. But I actually became a member of the Rhine Institute at Duke University, which was a study of parapsychology and all things paranormal. And I
Dude, you
was
studied at Duke?
I didn't study at Duke. I got accepted as a member of the Rhine Institute. I got recognized as a legitimate paranormal investigator. They were like, this guy, like you could literally go to their website and my name is up there with like the biggest name. I'm like, it's like boom, parapsychologist, Mike Roberts, paranormal investigator, parapsychologist, so I'm up there with all these guys, right? So
Dude, that's something I didn't know. That's insane. I love it. I love it. Okay,
yeah.
so keep going.
So then I would say probably sometime around like 2002, 2003, just before the passing of Hans Holzer, his daughter, Alexandra, um, we ended up in contact. I think the first time she spoke to me was on like MySpace. To put that in perspective,
That was a
right? So
long time ago.
we're going way
We're
back.
going way.
But Peabody, let's do this.
Yeah.
So, um, but like she and I like instantly connected. We became like brother and sister. I mean, we had her dad in common. He had taught me a bunch of stuff. She was wanting to continue his work, and so she and I worked together a lot. We traveled all over the country. We went everywhere. I mean, we were in New York, we'd be in West Virginia. We were just in different places. We had our own little podcast shows that we were doing together. And deep down, the little kid in me is like, this all started because I wanted to buy a Ghostbusters book, right? When her dad passed, she boxed up a bunch of stuff from his apartment. I mean, he was a contributor to things like Fate magazine and all these things, and so they would mail copies with his articles to his apartment in Manhattan. And so she boxed all this stuff up. She sent me like his original tape recorder that he used to take, like the big bulky solid state recorder that he used to do his investigations with. I have all these books that were his. I have like a lot of his personally owned first editions. Like his very first book was actually called Ghost Hunter, which is why my book is called I Am a Ghost Hunter. It was paid in tribute to his book.
Hold that book up. Hold that book up to the camera. Grab that book.
Yeah. So this is this book was done in tribute to Hans Holzer's first book, which was called Ghost Hunter. He was the first person to actually coin that phrase. And a lot of people don't know that he actually has ties here to Wilmington as well, because he was the one back in the 70s that the actual government the government called him in to investigate the Mako Light because there was no explanation for it at the time. And so in one of his books, he actually has a whole story about his arrival in Wilmington at the airport, and they met him with fanfare. They had like a little parade out there playing music, and they took him out there to do an investigation. And of course, it happened to be on a night where the light didn't show itself. But
that's because it probably knew, right? I mean, if we want to get deep into it, like they know when you're coming for them, right? Now, just for the audience, tell them. I know a little bit about the Mako Light, but tell the audience what the Mako Light is. I know it's a light that appears on the railroad tracks.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So it's technically, and I actually talk about this in the book because I was one of the first people to dig out the information that actually may prove that the story is just a story with the Mako Light. It's actually like the Mako Light may exist, but it's not what they think it is.
So they got an idea. It's probably methane or something that ignites in the middle of the night, or
the common theory at the time was that it was vehicle headlights passing by off of the highway, but they kind of ruled that out a little bit, and then I believe the final this is what it is that they were these things called Willow Wisps, which are, fairly, it's a natural occurring phenomena. It's just kind of rare. But it's when these little balls of light kind of spontaneously appear, do their thing, and then disappear. So yeah, I mean, it is a swampy, if you've ever been to this area, it's a very swampy area.
So natural gases and stuff come up from out of the ground.
There's a lot of stuff. But so the original story was that there was a train conductor named Joe Baldwin. He worked for the Atlantic Coast Railroad. They had pulled into the station at Mako, and the engine was having trouble, so they disconnected from the caboose and pulled on forward into the station, which left Joe Baldwin on the caboose further down the track alone. With nothing but a lantern to warn oncoming trains that, there's a caboose here on the track.
Right on the track.
And even famous presidents, Grover Cleveland was documented saying that he saw this light. So I mean, this was a thing. This people in the 70s and 80s would go out there and see it. But ultimately, the story goes that an oncoming train came in, didn't see him, like he didn't get out there in time and wave it, and
Oh,
by
and
the
it
time
killed him.
by the time he did, the trains collided. He was decapitated, and thrown from the caboose, and the light that the Mako light itself that everybody sees is him out there with his lantern, looking for his missing head. Um, that's always been the Joe Baldwin story. Okay, so
So
uh,
back to Hans.
so Hans Holzer came in. He said, he obviously didn't see it. He interviewed a lot of people. A lot of the eyewitness stories were the same. One of the people that he interviewed was my grandfather, who used to take my dad out to see the Mako Light. And my dad doesn't or didn't believe in the paranormal stuff at all before, he's passed away now, but he didn't believe in that kind of stuff. But he said as a kid, he went out there with his dad, my granddad, and they sat there in an old pickup truck next to a fence, and my dad was sitting in the truck reading a comic book, and he says the light came so close that it lit it up so that he would be able to read that comic book for a couple of seconds, that the light would come that close. That's how he knew that it wasn't something like headlights.
What?
um, Now, in my own research, I found out that 10 years prior to the first time the Joe Baldwin story was ever told, there was an employee for the Atlantic Coastline, which is the railroad system that ran from, Wilmington on up and ran through Mako. There was an actual employee named Charles Baldwin who, during a pit stop, what did fall from one of the trains, suffered a head injury. He did not get decapitated. He didn't even die on the spot. I actually saw, we saw the coroner's report. He died like 11 days later in the hospital.
So he had like a concussion or something, and his brain bled or something and killed him.
Yeah, it was crazy, and there's no listing in the entire employee log for Atlantic Coastline going back to day one of operation of anyone named Joe Baldwin. There was only Charles Baldwin, and the story was so similar, that you could see how 10 years later, down the grapevine,
Someone tells the story, it tells the story again, and then it just gets a little bloviated.
boom, urban legend.
Urban legend.
And
Wow.
it's unfortunate, but I was so glad, because that was kind of like my purpose of why I started doing ghost hunting. Wasn't necessarily to prove whether they exist or prove that they don't, but to try to find out, is what people think that they're experiencing, is that what it is, or is there another explanation for it, or
Because either
are
way, you either figure out if it's not or if it is, if it's fact or it's just urban legend. Yeah, I mean,
exact
wow.
exact
So so when did you start? When did you start writing the book? It's 190 pages.
Yeah, I actually, so I took a long break from the paranormal at one point, from doing any investigations, because obviously late, like I started my paranormal research team in 1999, which was about 6 or 7 years before the first like television show ever aired, making
Right,
that
right.
popular. And but once that happened, like the whole state of everything kind of changed. It didn't feel like you were going there to learn, or to study, or to figure things out. It started being more about people and businesses specifically that wanted you to come there and say their place is haunted because that looked good on the
That's
brochures.
that's touristy stuff. Okay, I
Right.
gotcha. I gotcha.
And so, but during the course of all this, I got asked to be a guest speaker at, I don't know, 100, 200 of these like national conventions, where they would fly me out, pay for everything, have me give a lecture. I had like all these like presentations and photos and videos of just things that were, things that weren't, blah blah blah. And being on that circuit is actually what eventually led to doing the convention circuits that I did later in life. But after a while, I mean, man, we would be at some of these investigate. These weren't just like, oh yeah, we go there, stay till 3 o'clock in the morning, nothing happens, and we leave. A lot of these locations, like the Battleship, which is why I got contacted. With the Battleship, I mean, we did multiple investigations a year for almost a 7-year period. That way we could correlate, hey, is it happening during this time of year, this time of day, this kind of weather, this kind of humidity, this kind of moon cycle? Like, what is causing some of this weird stuff that people are seeing or experiencing here? And see if there was anything that kind of like correlated to bring that all together. Like maybe there is some kind of common ground that more people noticed it when it was, a full moon and 50 degrees outside were more reports than it was when there was, dead summer and
Well, because
80.
like with old ships, especially when they're docked, the metal expands and in heat and
Sure.
then contracts during the winter time. And if you're in there at the right time and you hear some buckling or something that's like metal turn, like some of that stuff, can be explained.
Yeah.
So you have to do
And
the research. But there are people that have said they have seen ghosts. Now going back to A&E and the SyFy channel,
sure.
these episodes, dude, like didn't you heard stuff, right? Like you and
So my whole thing with the stuff that we experienced on the Battleship is anything that was like that was like, that sounded like, creaking or metal expanding or even stuff like footsteps, we would just dismiss it. First of all, the place is, if you've never been on it, it's huge. It's like several football fields on top of several football fields on
yeah,
top of,
it's a huge
yeah.
battleship. Yeah.
So it's a lot of area to cover, and when you have a team of like 5 or 6 people, it's very important to know where everybody's at, so that if you see something over here, it's not just your team member walking around checking out that area or whatever. There were a couple things that we experienced at the Battleship. One of them was a very odd moving shadow. And when I say odd, it's like, the camera's panning one way and the shadow looked like it was panning the opposite direction. And we just kind of wanted to dismiss it, that maybe something between the camera was just causing the shadow, until the camera stops and then the shadow moves back to the left. And it's like, okay, that was a little bit weird. And it's in an area, it was in the mess hall. It was right around an area where there's a actual documented death on the ship, where a guy actually had a very heavy object dropped down basically. Now, if you've ever been there, they use it now for a wishing well, so you can look down there and there's like money for like 10 floors. But apparently
Right.
they used to, that was like one of the ammo shafts that they would use to bring the ammo up the floors and drop them down. And apparently one snapped and fell on a guy while he was coming up the ladder and just completely completely squashed him. Timmy Thompson, I believe they said his name was. And this
Oh,
happened.
that's a terrible way to go. I mean, if you're gonna go and you're on a warship, you'd probably want to get killed in battle. I mean, to
Well,
have
yeah,
to have basically an anvil dropped on you, that
considering
sucks.
that considering that the ship has a lot of hazards, but considering that the ship was actually struck by a torpedo,
I
which
did not know
is
that. No, I didn't know
that's
that.
that's why it was pretty much decommissioned. It got hit by a torpedo and blew out one whole side of the ship. A few people died during that. Um, and actually, the top of the battleship was hit by a Japanese kamikaze plane at one point. And so there's a lot.
Oh, so
There's
that
such,
guy could be haunting the ship.
dude, there's such a history there. The other things were like, so we would do these recordings, where you leave your little recorder and you do these EVP sessions, which is just where you ask a bunch of questions and later on listen to the audio, and you might hear things that
EVP.
either could,
What is
yeah,
that?
EVP. electronic voice phenomena. So basically, anything that the decibel level is below human hearing, but still sensitive enough to be picked up. And some people theorize that that voice is imprinted on there magnetically, so you wouldn't have heard that anyway. However, so we'd do those sessions and we'd come back with some weird stuff and stuff that would sound relevant to things you might hear on a ship. But probably one of the ones that was shown on the show, uh, the first year that we did investigations on the battleship, we could not go down to the lower deck where the brig was because they were doing all kinds of repairs. That deck was completely sealed off. And I remember clear as day, like I'm listening through, I don't know, 16 hours worth of just static, like no noise whatsoever. And then all of a sudden there's like this really deep, raspy voice, which is definitely none of us. And we hear it just say one word. That's it. One word in 16 hours. It says Patterson. And it was in such a disturbingly
What?
sound.
Dude, that's
right?
freaky.
So afterwards, I take the audio and I call Danielle, who was the person in charge of, all the activities at the battleship at the time. And I said, can you check? I was like, I know this is like a very general thing and the ship log is probably super long. I was like, but can you check and see if there was anybody on board the ship with the name Patterson? And she goes, well,
Wait,
there was like
this
four
on
or
the
five.
episode of the show?
Yeah, they put this on the episode of the show. So she was like, yeah, there was like 4 or 5 Pattersons. So we don't know who it could have been.
But one of them had died.
But listen, no, it wasn't even that one of them had died. Here's the part that was crazy. So about a year later, like all that stuff is now like out of our mind. Like I'm not even thinking about what we found a year ago. I'm focusing on what we find now. At this point, now the next level has been finished off, and we're allowed to go down there. So we're down in the brig, and we're going through. If you don't know, the brig is like the jail, for the ship.
For the ship, sure.
And so we're going through, and we're getting ready to sit down and do a little session inside the brig, inside these jail cells with the door shut, and on the wall. And this is I know this sounds like something stereotypical out of like a screenplay or a horror movie or whatever, but my investigator is sitting there, and I walk by and I just happen to notice that on the wall behind him, it looked like could have been blood, but it looked more like really it was written in feces, which is more likely the deal. And I think she did say that that's what they determined was it was feces. The words Patterson was here is on the wall, written in poop.
Shit.
Yeah. Shit. So
you're kidding me.
No, and here's the funny thing. It's still there today. They've never like washed it off or wiped it off. It's still there. And
oh, come on.
The episode,
they've got to have wiped that off by now. Who wants shit on the wall?
Dude, it's still there. When keep in mind that when they called me to film the episode at the battleship, I wasn't even living in North Carolina anymore. They flew me out from Texas, and they sent their camera guy, and he came down, and we did the little walkthrough, which he almost died while we were doing that. He actually took a really nasty spill.
I was going to say, because it's really hot inside, because those ships, when you're out at sea, they don't have air conditioning.
Yeah,
back in the 1940s, because you had the air that came in off the ocean, and so it's like you could pass out in inside the hull of that ship just walking the hallways.
Well, the thing for him was, if you've ever walked through it, is that it has these portals, right, that you walk through.
Yeah.
And they're about knee high, so you literally like have to lift your leg up and over to walk through.
That's to keep water from.
He's trying to film us, and he's walking backwards, and I'm like, guy, watch out. Like, I'm trying not to break his camera because I know he's trying to get a shot, so I'm like,
So
like not
he's
break his
literally gonna
camera.
fall backwards.
I didn't want to break his concentration. I'm like, dude, watch out. He's still walking backwards. I'm like, dude, watch out. Next thing I know, boom, his legs hit that and he goes through, and all we can see is his 2 feet sticking up like this. No, like one shoe on, one shoe off. And he was laughing, thank God, because right next to dude, right next to him and all over the floor in that battleship are these little pipes that come up. They stick up like maybe this far up off the floor. And with him falling backwards, he could have fell straight onto that pipe, dude, and that would have been it. Like he would have been gone. But we went down. He went with us. We went down into the brig and reshot the finding it on the wall, and it was still there. And I thought it was so funny because when the episode aired, A&E was doing like a live commentary on like Twitter and all these other things, and they're like, they should have made it look more believable in the reenactment of that. And I'm like,
That wasn't the
that
reenactment.
that's the actual stuff. Like that's doo doo. Like that's actual doo doo. Like we didn't
Well, did
redo
they
it.
ever figure out that there was a guy named Patterson that died or got hurt or something on the ship? What was the deal?
So apparently, um, the prisoner with the last name Patterson was held on the ship. He did pass away on the ship and was transferred to another ship to have his body removed. So there was that. Um, some of the other stuff, like I had this photo, and I can actually show it to you here on stream, just because I actually did include this photo in the book. This was a photo that I took that was up on the main deck, and it was just like super weird looking because it, to me, I definitely like, and I'm not one of those people that's like, oh yeah, look at something and then try to say it's something that it's not. And actually, this is not the best quality picture of that, but if you can see it, over here in the corner, it looks like there's kind of like an arm with a finger pointing out, and it's like
Oh,
a
dude, I
rope.
totally see that.
It's like,
I'm, yeah, okay.
so so that got submitted, for the Sci-Fi Channel's Fact or Faked. And the problem with what happened with Sci-Fi's Fact or Faked, and spoiler alert be damned, but I'm sure the show's over. It's been over for years. I'm sure the NDA no longer applies. Um, but that show was 100% scripted, but not to the people that they talked to. It was already scripted to a beginning, middle, and end. They had to have some kind of resolution already before they ran any tests, blah blah blah, in order for the producers to approve them to go shoot an episode. So it was already like predetermined. So what they did was they took that picture and they were like, okay, we can see where he's saying it's a hand, but we're also going to say that there's a head up here and there's a this over here. And they started talking about it and about trying to recreate it, and they could recreate something that looked similar but not enough. But they're like, they just called it misidentification or something. It was really weird. But like the thing is like the day before we shot on the battleship, the crew, the cast wasn't there, the crew was. And I was the first one in, and they sent me up to the hotel room, or the waiting room, and on the table was the script. And so I flipped through it, and I was like, well, they're already going to say that they were. It basically went like this: they were going to say that they're able to recreate everything that we found, but their own investigation the next night was going to turn up results that they couldn't explain. So
Ah,
that was already in the script.
and see,
But
that's
the
the
funny part,
problem. That's the problem with. Go ahead, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Then I want to jump in here.
I was just gonna say, the funny part was this: two can play that game. Okay, so since I was privy to things in the script, what ended up happening was, obviously I played along, and I came out and they started asking their questions, but I knew what they were going to ask ahead of time. I also knew what they were going to try to blame certain things on, like the shadow I told you about earlier. They were going to try to say that a flashlight caused it, which, we were not carrying flashlights. I prohibited my team from carrying flashlights, because guess what they do when you're trying to investigate?
They make
They cast
lens flares, they cast shadows. Yeah, I mean, like
they
that's totally.
illuminate dust in a photo that makes those little orb things that people say or go see. So it's like
So, but
we
see, that's because you knew what you were doing. You understood that
exactly.
you can't. Yeah.
And so what I did was, and whenever they would ask me a question, I would answer it in a way that their follow up question couldn't be asked, because I had already, you know, uh,
Yeah, boy, they don't know you did that.
caught them ahead of time. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see their field producer going like this, right? Like she's giving them the cut thing, and so she would come over there and she would say, "All right, we're gonna try that one more time, except this time, we're gonna pick up with her line." And so they would just cut my answer completely out of it and take the audio that they had already got and chop it to what they need. And that was the same thing they did on my ghost story. They made me say something that I absolutely didn't say. So,
That's and
but
you know
that's
that, but
TV.
that look, that's it's show business, and that's the bottom line. And I worked on an episode of Discovery Swamp Loggers,
Oh, right.
and it's nothing like your show. But the thing is, it was like a company owned by a father and son, and in real
Hmm.
life, these guys are like best of friends. They love each other. They're the most caring father and son duo that you'd ever run into. But the field producer kept doing things to make them fight. And it was a real turnoff to me because, like, the field producer kept, his job is to kind of guide the ship to these, oh, the equipment broke down. And instead of like the son would have called up the father and said, hey, look, this broke down, then the father could go get somebody right out there to fix it. He would tell him, well, don't tell him till after lunch. And then, of course, like the
Right.
father's like, you know, we get paid $500 per load of lumber that we bring in off a truck, and they have to do 25 of these loads a day. And if a piece of equipment's broken down, you lose half the day. I mean, the father would flip out on the son, and it's like, that's not cool, because they don't fight like that. Like
Yeah, it's
that
not
never
how
would
they
have
were at
happened in
all.
real life. And so I understand that, like most people that watch reality television show, whether it's The Apprentice or whether it's The Bachelorette and all this, they're all scripted.
Yeah.
They all have writers writing this, or they
And
have two or three writers that write it. So okay, but go ahead. Let's get back to the show.
well, no, I was just gonna say, because at the bottom line, somebody's funding that, and
Right, they got to make their
they,
money back. They got to make it interesting. I
it
mean,
has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
a 3 act
Period.
play. It's got to
So
be a 3 act. Gotcha.
sure.
So you do A&E, you do SyFy's Fact or Faked,
Hmm.
and
Which
so tell me about A&E at least tried to make it a little bit more realistic, where Fact or Faked was really
okay.
that's the gimmick with that one, right?
Well, so it was, yeah, and it was really interesting when I got the phone call from A&E, because again, I was living in Texas, and they're like, we want to cover this story. We want to bring you out to. They actually flew me out to Culver City, in LA, and I ended up spending a week there. It was like a free trip to California. They treated us super nice. We got to the hotel room. They had like the gift baskets with all the A&E, merchandise in
Swag,
it
the
with the
swag
coffee
in it.
mug.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
They treated us really nice. We got paid to do it. And when they brought us into the studio, they said, "Look, we want you to just tell your story. Tell it in your words." And I was like, "Wow, man! Finally, a place that's gonna like let us tell the truth." And so we
Your truth.
yeah, we get to this part where, like, just like I was telling you before, the first time we caught that shadow on the video, I my investigator that was filming at the time was screaming
And
to let me know.
this is Patterson.
Yeah,
No,
this
this is
was
the
the
guy that
shadow.
the shadow, but was it
The,
the guy that got killed by the
yeah,
anvil?
Timmy Thompson.
Timmy
Timmy Thompson.
Thompson. So that shadow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so when it happened, like she screamed for me, and I came running in, and I took a look at it, and at the time you're talking a video camera with a viewfinder this big, and my exact words were, the first thing that I wanted to do is tell everybody to continue investigating. We pull the tape, and I want to take it all home and analyze it and take a look at it. And we have paper maps where everybody signs in where they're at, and so I know where everybody's at. I know where any shadows should be, couldn't be, no possibility of, that kind of thing. Like, we're super thorough.
And
And
for the audience, you're also a director and cinematographer, so you understand lighting. So
sure,
you would
absolutely,
you would have been like, oh, that shadow came from this. Like
yeah, I
it's
mean,
not like you don't have a knowledge or a background in that. So I just wanted to make
it's
that
one,
clear for the audience.
yeah, and it's one thing when the shadow itself moves while the light is being still. I like that's kind of hard to do. So
Do you and that footage did that air on A&E, the shadow?
it 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 actually aired on both. It aired
Oh.
on Factor
Oh.
Fake as well.
I'm going to find that
Um,
footage. I want to find that shit. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
yeah. During the interview on My Ghost Story, I literally said, I so that people won't get excited and distracted, we go ahead and pull all the material, put it off to the side, mark it with timestamps, and leave it, and start a whole new tape. There's no reason to accidentally almost record over it, or have a malfunction later or something go wrong. So let's go ahead and put this away, and we'll review this, because the last thing that I want to do is come running off the battleship with the camera and say, "Oh my God, we caught a ghost on camera." Okay, so that's exactly what I said. A&E was like, "Man, that is a good soundbite. Let's get
Oh,
it." And all of a sudden, I watched the commercial for the episode, and there's me saying, "We caught a ghost on camera." And that's not what I
that's
said.
not
I
what
said
the
that was the
intent
last
was.
thing I wanted to do, was
That's
say that.
called spin. That's like, the politicians will take one sentence of something you said and not have the beginning or the end of it, and it's
Out of
completely out of
context.
context.
And let me tell
That's
you, the
typical Hollywood.
I've had a Facebook page for Research Paranormal for probably, I don't know, however, 12 years, ever since everybody made the move from MySpace over. And it's still sitting. I mean, I get daily notifications that people are still following the page, and it's well up over like 14,000 people, which it's been at like 12, 13,000 since the day we started it.
Wow.
Um, but back then, I used to post videos from our investigations that were like little clips of things. And probably the one thing that was like the most famous clip I had was, we did this investigation at Carolina Beach at this place called the Mermaid Manor. And I'm gonna like, straight up, there was on the DVR footage, like the security camera footage that we had, it looked like the ghost of a woman appeared at the bottom of the stairs out of thin air, and then turns sideways, and then rolls around and just goes away. And
What?
when we saw it, man, we freaked out. We took the hard drive, we locked it in a lead case. I mean, it was locked tight. And we brought it home to look at it. And I looked at it, and I scratched my head, and I was like, "Man, I don't know. Like, it looks like a ghost. I see a dress, I see a legs, I see," like, your mind starts messing with you the more you look at it. And I would send it to other people, and they were like, "Yeah, that's 100%. Like, that's the best ghost video I've ever seen." Well, something about the video never set right with me. So what I did, excuse me, had to cough for a second.
Yeah, no, that's
So what
fine.
I did was every one of our investigators all had handheld cameras. Now, keep in mind that these are all infrared cameras, so you're not seeing you can see into the night with it and into these dark rooms, but you're not seeing the light that's being emitted off of it. So that was one of the things that kind of was like, well, maybe there's kind of an explanation, because I don't want to call these people at Mermaid Manor and be like, yo, we got a ghost, or I don't want to upload this footage and
Yeah.
say it's a ghost, because that, while 99% of people would probably do that, especially in this day and age, to try to get it as a viral video, I was more worried about claiming something was something when it wasn't. And so I actually did that. I looked at the DVR, the 4-shot security cameras that we set up, and I looked at everybody's handheld tapes, and I marked where everybody was, and I said, okay, let's go back there and let's just reenact that 3 minutes before and after. And I wrote down step by step what everybody did. I was like, okay, your camera, you were walking down the hallway, you pointed, this was in the center of the frame. Then at one point, this picture frame was in the center of the frame. And then this. And I stood at the DVR and I called everything for them to do out over a walkie talkie. I would be like, all right, take 2 steps forward, point the camera here, blah, blah, blah. We went through that much trouble. And at one point, as we were doing that, I said, okay, the investigator was this guy named Andrew at the time. I said, okay, so at this point, you turn around, and when you do, your camera is pointed slightly at the wall, and there's like the corner piece of a picture frame. And he goes, yeah, I know which picture frame you're talking about. And when he turns around, all of a sudden that appeared at the bottom of the stairs. And I said, okay, now just move your camera like you're turning back around. And when he did, it disappeared. It was such a freak small thing. Like that infrared light that you could not see. First of all, inside of Mermaid Manor, the walls were made to look like a hunting lodge. And they
Okay.
were very, very, they were like wood with like that lacquer on them that makes them kind of shiny.
Sure, sure. I know
And
what you're talking about. Like, yeah, I've been in a couple of hunting cabins that have that look to it.
dude, a 1 in a million shot here. When he turned the infrared light, which can be seen by the DVR cameras, the infrared light hit the wall, shined up onto the picture frame, which also trajected right back to a ceiling fan that was just over the stairs. Dude, there was a hole in the stairs. I am not kidding you, smaller than a dime. There was a hole in the stairs, and when that beam of light came through that hole, it came out in a V shape like that. And then that made it look like a dress. And then
Oh,
what made it look like legs was the actual staircase, the banister coming down the middle, and the in between made it look like there was the dress with the 2 legs and the partial body. And so we were 100% able to recreate it, and I uploaded a video to MySpace back then and to Facebook, and I explained all that. I showed the footage, I showed the steps we took to recreate it, and so many people were like, oh my god, you guys went through so much trouble when you could have just said it was a ghost, and everybody would have either believed you or not, but you
yeah,
went
but
through so
that's
much trouble.
look, your name's up on a wall at Duke.
And that's yeah,
You can't
that
you
and
can't fake stuff, man. Like, you can't be that guy.
I have to make sure that what gets put out is integrity. Now, the flip side to all that is, it's been very, very hard with paranormal investigating, because we do document everything and we do film everything, but it's been very, very hard because people don't take it with a grain of salt that I also am a filmmaker. And so, do you know how hard it is when you're a filmmaker, but this has nothing to do with filmmaking, and I'm not trying to make a
Right,
film.
but if you wanted to, you could fake any of these kind of paranormal activity videos because you understand the
And
process.
that's the problem, is that even if I found something that was considered like the holy grail of paranormal proof. If I actually had a video of a ghost right now come into frame here right beside me and say, "Hey, I'm a ghost. We exist." They're going to say, "Wait a minute. That guy has an IMDb page. He's a
He's a
filmmaker.
filmmaker.
That's digital. That's CGI.
Yeah,
That
that's
didn't happen."
After Effects. That's yeah.
So, but I can, with a clear conscience, I can say that I have never used any filmmaking techniques. It's always been raw video, raw audio. I don't mix the two
But
because I
that's
don't
but,
think
but
the
again,
two
that's because you read a book when you were like 7 years old or 8 years
exactly.
old, and that became your life. So why would you want to
And
be that guy to pull a
and I
hoax?
was and I was, even his own daughter, promoted me for like 4 or 5 years, calling me his protege and saying that I was the only person that was authorized to do official investigations in his style. Because he had his own investigating style, and there were a lot of people. They called it the Holzer method, and there were a lot of people that were trying to do that type of investigation. However, his own daughter came forward and said, "This guy is the only one allowed to do that
Wow.
because
You
this
you make
guy
me want to
knows
go
about."
hunt ghosts right now. I want to be
Dude,
like, dude, let's go. Let's get some gear. Let's go to the battleship. Let's do another episode.
I still have all my gear. I have new gear that I just never put to the test. But uh, as much as I miss ghost hunting, or investigating, I don't miss staying up till 4 or 5, 6 o'clock
Oh
in the
yeah.
morning,
Yeah, I'm old,
sitting in the
man.
dark,
I can't do that.
talking to myself, and then having to pack up a
Oh,
ton of equipment, load it back up into the vehicles, and then spend a week going through, footage and
footage. Yeah.
audio.
Yeah.
But if you have a passion for it, like, it's not a chore; it's something you look forward to doing.
Right.
Um,
But after all
but
these
I
years, I could see how you'd be like, oh, dude. I mean, I'm
si-
45, dude. I can't stay up past 9 o'clock now that I got a baby.
since
Although,
'99, we celebrated our 20th. What was it? Our 20-year anniversary on Research Paranormal last year. So
wow. Yeah.
uh,
That's a long time.
good times.
Dude, I've really appreciated you doing the show today and
Yeah.
shooting the breeze, and I know that the audience probably got a lot out of this. I'm gonna put up links to all your social media and everything, and also I'll see if I can't get clips and stuff for the A&E and all that stuff, and run some video on this thing while
Sure.
the early on when the podcast, or when the thing airs. But dude, we got to do this again, man. And next time, I know you're a gamer, and you do that, and you do it. There's a cause behind it too, so we'll
Yeah.
get you back on the show so we could talk about that. And dude, how many games are behind you? I mean, the people can't see. I've got the wide shot of you.
Just these?
No, I'm
Okay.
talking all around you.
Dude, that's just what you can see on the camera. There's a whole nother set over there. Then there's
Well,
all
see,
the digitals.
I can see everything on the right and the left of you and underneath
Nah,
you. The problem is the window on
here,
the
man.
edit.
Hold on. You
Dude,
can kind of see everything,
dude,
and
that's
then you can
insane.
kind of see every console, and then the gaming PC and every you. I strategically positioned so that it wouldn't show too much.
Well, dude, I mean, it's cool that that's what you do, man. I definitely want to have some links to you. Got a Twitch account and all that stuff,
Absolutely, a full-time Twitch streamer.
dude. I mean,
I've
well,
actually been toying with the idea coming up for Halloween because there's a lot of video games based on paranormal and ghost hunting. So everything from like Luigi's Mansion to Fatal Frame, like depending on how realistic you want to be. I always thought about doing all those ghost hunting themed games and do uh, real life ghost hunter plays ghost hunting video game clickbait my YouTube. So,
dude, you should
like,
totally do it, man. I mean, it's not like you don't have the credentials to back it up. So
right. Yeah, I think it would be fun because I mean, we could tell you. I could easily be like, yeah, I totally would not do that.
Well,
But yeah,
dude, go
the
ahead. What were you
funniest
gonna say?
thing to me about, and I'll just say this, I've been to, like I said, I've been everywhere. I've been Myrtle's Plantation. I've been to the Stanley Hotel, where The Shining is based off of. I've been basically to every place in America that has been called or considered haunted, whether it's houses, prisons, businesses, residentials, whatever. And I will say that every time I walk into them, the first thing that I can think of is kind of movie related, and that is in every horror movie, you always say, "Come on, man, how realistic is this? How would these people really go into that house? I mean, there's a killer in there. Would they really go into the
Right,
woods? Would they go?"
right.
We absolutely would. We do. I catch myself. I'm like, you know what? This is the same thing that I yell at the screen about, and I'm doing it, and I'm not even like. I'm just walking in with nothing. I got a tape recorder and a
So wait,
flashlight, and I'm like, "Is there anybody here?" like, like I'm a lot
so
less
would you be
prepared
the
for the
guy that
room.
gets killed first?
You know what? I don't think so. I think I could either run. I'm pretty fast still, man, but I think I could at least try to talk my way out of it or promise them a part in a movie or something. I don't know, man. I'm not getting killed though.
No, no, me neither. Well, have I been killed in anything yet? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, you got shot in a western, didn't you?
Uh, I got punched in the face in a western
Oh, wait,
and
no,
had
you
my
got
nose
shot
split.
in a mafia type
I got
in the
shot.
indie.
I got shot in one movie and killed. And I'm trying to think if I feel like I've been killed in other things too.
I don't know. I just know that you were like constantly, breaking an arm, breaking your neck, and this one TV show, but I can't remember the name of it.
Well, that was always one of those things as an actor, like, and I learned this from Brad Pitt. I know it's just crazy, but as an actor, he goes out of his way to do things to himself. Like, after he had won People's Magazine's prettiest person or most beautiful person in the world or whatever the hell they do on People Magazine, he was on the cover for Legends of the Fall.
Hmm.
Like, every movie after that, he would do something to himself to kind of, whether it be 12 Monkeys, he would have a contact in his eye to make one eye go in an opposite direction, or, the Ocean's movies, he'd come in with a broken arm in one of the movies, his arm would be in a sling, and like he's always doing things to screw himself up so he would never be beautiful
Sure.
or ever be typecast as that. And I kind of did that as well. Any kind of movie project or something that I was in, I would always say, I even suggested to the director, "Hey man, could I have like a butterfly band-aid on my nose?" And like my nose was broken, and the director would look at me and go, but why?" And I said, "Well, who knows what happened before I came into the scene, but I think it would be
Right.
interesting if my nose was broken with a little thing." And then, yeah, okay, sure. And I remember I shaved my head for one movie, and I had asked the director, because the director wanted me to have my hair like I've got now, and I had said, "Well, if I'll do the part, but you got to let me shave my head." And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "'Cause why not?" And I shaved my head, and it was just the character turned out cooler in that thing too. So I like to do that. Yeah, I know we went off on a tangent there.
It's fine.
Your book, "I Am a Ghost Hunter." We're gonna have a link in the comment section below, or in the description below, so people could check that out if they want to order your book. It's 190 pages of you hunting ghosts.
And actually, if you have Amazon Prime, you can read it online for free.
Boom. There you go. There you go. That's cool. And also we'll have all your streaming stuff down here too for Twitch and all that, all your gaming stuff, so people can click on and check it out, and we'll send people your way. They can check out you, because I don't own a game system. I can't
You
play.
should, man.
I can't play
Let me-
games worth of shit. And I'll tell you what. I like to watch. I go over to a friend's house, and I will
you-
watch someone play a game. And to me, it's when, especially if they've got a big giant screen. Oh, I know. Oh,
Wait till you see, do you see the graphics on these
I
things, man?
know, I know. You know what I like doing? I like watching, what do you call it? The cinematic storylines, and somebody will go on
Yeah.
YouTube and they'll edit them all together into like a 20-minute movie, 25-minute movie. I like watching that, or watching people play the game in front of me on a big 70-inch screen. And to me, it's like I'm watching Star Wars. It's just somebody else's adventure. But I don't have the hand-eye coordination. I
Nah.
don't, dude. I don't care if it's Super Mario Brothers on Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. I mean, the only video game console that I was ever good at was the Atari 2600, if that dates
I
me.
had one of those. I had
Prior to
one of
the
those.
Atari 2600, we had ColecoVision. If anybody remembers ColecoVision.
I had a Coleco. I loved my Coleco. I used to play this Smurfs game on there all the time.
Oh my God. Now we're really dating ourselves with the 80s.
I also had an Odyssey. I bet you didn't have one of those.
I did not have an Odyssey because I have no hand and eye coordination for video games. That's why after Atari 2600, I was over. It was done. And I would watch my friends play. You know what? My brother, he personally had, when we lived together, he lived in the basement. He had a Sega Genesis. You remember that shit?
Oh yeah.
He would ask me to play with him the football games. I don't know which ones they were, whatever they were called.
Like the sports talk football Madden
Whatever it was. But he knew I couldn't play. So like he would do a play and then throw a bomb and score a touchdown and cheer. And I'd be like, dude, I don't even know what I'm doing. And he loved just like running down. And that's, I can't play games with people like
and
that.
and the state of video games is just so different now. Like
Yeah.
horribly different.
I
So
mean, at least with something like Super Mario Brothers, you got to find the boxes with the coins, ding, 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 and jump and hit the
mhm.
coins. And then you kind of learn a pattern with those kind of games.
Right.
These other
Yeah,
ones,
yeah.
I wouldn't know where to go to get the gem in somewhere in the. It's insane. These games are so intricate.
They are, and they're only going to get bigger and better. The new consoles come out in November, so a whole new generation of video gaming starts in November.
I know everyone's going nuts over PlayStation 5, and I don't even own PlayStation 1. I'm glad you did the show with me. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
man.
And again, we'll have all the links in the description below so everybody can get in touch with you, Mike Roberts, Ghost Hunter. Thanks for being on the spotlight with Sean O'Rourke.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, buddy.